Welcome to the Passive Income Podcast. I'm your host, Dividend Dave. Please be sure to join the Passive Income Posse by clicking that subscribe button below. Super excited for today's episode number 100. Wow, we've made it to 100 episodes of the Passive Income Podcast. And joining me for this historic moment is Emma, coming from the UK. Emma, please go ahead and give yourself an introduction.
Hello, I'm Emma. I am the one-woman team behind BeMoneySavvy.com. Been a money blogger for just over 5 years now. I write about everything from money saving apps to side hustles and a whole host of other money-related content.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was checking out your website this morning, and there's a lot of content on there. I will bring it up later, and obviously, I will have the link in the description below. So, yeah, if you're ready, let's just get into it.
Yeah.
So, like you said, you started that blog about I 5, almost 6 years ago, and I guess kind of prior to that, what got you into investing, and then what led you down that journey to share your journey as well.
Yeah, so I think it's probably a common starting place for a lot of people that share sort of money content. So I come from quite a low income background. My parents, they were a single income family. My dad was on a particularly low income. I'm sure he won't mind me saying. And I witnessed that throughout my whole childhood. I witnessed them living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to get by. My dad had to take on extra work whenever it was offered to him. And at some point in my childhood, I was sort of like, I don't want to live like this.
Right.
Um, in as I become a teenager, I got my first job, and I would literally take any job. I was babysitting, paper round, dog sitting, any job that you could get as a teenager. I was doing it. Little bits of side hustles. You get like amusement centres where you can play with like 2p's and 1p's and things like that. I'd be walking around there trying to find 2p's to collect and try and either win money or just collect it and save it for something else. So I was a super money aware kid and
Right.
teenager. When I went to university, there was at one point I had 8 different jobs while I was at university. Yeah, and that's usually the reaction I get from like lifeguarding, sports coach, as a personal trainer, worked in schools as an assistant, little bits of event work,
Plus
any
trying to do
job that I could.
university courses at the same time.
Yeah, all while trying to do my university course. Luckily came out with a good degree and all that jazz. But yeah, I just was I I guess at that point I was sort of in the mindset of just work hard and you'll earn money.
Right.
And I think that's where the mindset sort of started. And then outside of uni and outside of that work hard, keep just earning mentality, I started to look up how to make that a little bit easier for myself, and work smarter rather than harder, I guess was the approach that I was trying to take. So post university, I'm like 22. I'm googling things. I'm trying to find things out, learning about passive income, learning about investing, and this was completely new to me. My parents don't, minus my dad's pension. My dad doesn't invest at all. It's not something my mum's aware of. There is no awareness in my family about investing outside of a workplace pension.
Right.
They wouldn't have a clue where to start. So that was something I was really keen to learn about, and I think it's fair to say I made a few mistakes to begin with,
We all
as
did.
I was trying to figure out what was a sensible investment, I guess, is the way I would put it. I think originally I was just sort of like just invest and then it'll just do it, without really looking into what the investment was and the sort of 10-year plan for it and that kind of thing. Um, so yeah, I think it's sort of been a recent thing that I've got really, really into investing, and had a more personalized approach rather than just trying to throw money at something that I don't really understand. Now I'm sort of a bit more conscious of what I'm actually investing my money into. Dividends are, I wouldn't say they're as big in the UK, but that's something that I see my US Canadian friends on social media talking a lot about, and I try and find those UK dividends um, wherever possible because it's a great concept, really. But yeah, I think my mindset now is grow a business because what a brilliant investment. Invest, regulate as often as you can. Trying to invest more aggressively recently as well, and then do all the other little bits as well. The saving money where you can, the just being sensible, using a cashback card, getting discounts, not buying things you don't need, and trying to increase my income as well. So I'm employed part time as well. So just trying to do everything right in different areas is my current approach.
Yeah, and well, and that's obviously difficult to do everything right because, like you said, making mistakes in the beginning, and trust me, we've all made them, and we still continue to, we're human beings. We're going to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes and learn from others' mistakes and learn from others' successes and all of that. I kind of a couple of points there from your opening remarks. So, depending on a pension from an employer, I'm not sure if it's in the UK, but here in North America, Canada, those jobs are becoming few and far between. Where it's not like my dad worked for same nearly 40 years for the same company and was able to build up a very good pension actually. And I've actually just recently, within the last 5 years, the first time in my life where I've had a job that actually offers an RRSP matching program, which is basically a pension type program, right? So, you know, i- is that something that's harder to come by in the UK as well? The job. I see you nodding your head, so I'm guessing yes.
Well, I think, don't quote me on this, I don't know my exact numbers. I think pretty much everybody is enrolled into a workplace pension as soon as they start. I think you have to be, I don't know if it's everyone above 22, or I don't know if they've made it 18, or past a certain age, you're automatically enrolled into a workplace pension. You can unenroll yourself, which wouldn't be particularly smart.
Right,
But everyone is enrolled into it. And I think there's a certain percentage that your employer has to match. It might be like 4% or something like that.
right,
Everything else is sort of your, like, it's up to you if you want to contribute more. And there are certain pensions, and I've got one of these that are much better, where they like more than match it. They're like, my employer currently doubles my contribution, which is a really good pension. And but the sort of caveat with that one is that mine's defined benefits pension, so slightly different to.
right,
So I think pensions are a bit of a weird one, but I think in the UK it tends to be pretty good. I think we're all pretty much automatically enrolled at a certain age. Your employer matches to a level. I think it's one of it's common that that's the case.
right.
But I but the awareness of pensions in the UK, I would say, is pretty low because it's almost done for you to a level. I think the majority of people in the UK just don't really even like. I'll talk to people and I'll be like, "Are you investing?" And they'll be like, "No, I don't know how to invest. I don't know what that is." And I'm like, "Have you got a pension?" "Oh yeah, I'm paying to a pension, but I didn't know that that was investing." And I'm like, "Yeah, that is what that is."
Right.
Um, so there's a real lack of awareness, I would say, in the UK, and I think my dad's worked for a company, or he did work for a company for, I think it was like over 40 years, and his pension is pretty poor from it. So I think
Yeah, that's
it's
unfortunate.
a positive that we are automatically enrolled now, but I think the quality of the pensions still aren't always that great.
Right. Yeah. And then you mentioned like growing up your family. So you have siblings,
Yeah, so I just have the one brother.
and is he aware of investing now and sort of your journey and what you're doing and your blog and website? Does he follow you? Does he take advice from you?
Um, so my brother's a little bit younger, not massively younger, but yeah, he's a few years younger than me, and he's got a somewhat good mindset around money. He's got a good job. He side hustles. Um, he saves money wherever possible. He probably would ask me for like if I could find a discount code. But investing is not something that is yet of interest to him. I mean, he often rings me up and he'll say, "I've been out at the weekend, been out drinking,
Yeah.
and I have spent £300 this weekend." Um, and every time he does that to me, I go, "If you were investing that every weekend into an index fund, by the time you're 40, you could be retired." And I give him this spiel every single week when he tells me how much money he's wasted on alcohol.
Right.
Um, and I literally give it him every week. And I think I'm starting to try and reel it back in the hope that he comes to me for this information. But yeah, he's money savvy on a certain level, but not on the other level. But he's still quite young, so he's still in that sort of that mindset at the moment.
Yeah, interesting. Actually, I recall seeing a tweet that you sent out a while ago about your brother spending money at the pub on the weekend. So,
Yeah.
and when you're young, you do that. So hopefully he, kind of gets past that stage of life and then starts investing that money instead of blowing it at the pub every weekend.
Yeah, that's my hope.
And then you also mentioned dividends, which obviously, this is the passive income podcast, and we love to talk about uh, passive income in any aspect. And so, dividends, as you mentioned, are rather prevalent in a lot of Canadian companies as well as obviously US companies as well. And so, I guess and I kind of know your first answer. What is that company in the UK that you look at for a strong dividend income and growth?
So there's a few, and I actually asked my followers recently for this to see what they were all investing in, which was quite interesting. But they're not always UK companies as well. I
Right.
think so recently, and it's the one that's on my mind because the dividend literally got paid this week. Apple. So Apple's definitely um, one of my top ones. But also in terms of UK companies, we've got things like Tesco, Legal and General pay out decent dividends. So they're my sort of go-to. Um, I so my sort of approach to investing is a monthly amount into an index fund, which also pays a which also pay dividends, but annually, and it's reinvested. It's an accumulation fund,
Right.
and everything else is sort of I view it as like a me figuring out the stock market, just playing around. I'm not a day trader, but I do like to like if I hear some news about a company, I might have a look at their performance, see what I think about where they're at currently, and I sort of view that as a fun thing. But my monthly index fund investment, that's what I view as like that's the retirement fund. I hope anyway. I hope that's how it goes.
So the answer I was expecting there, and you did mention it briefly, was legal in general. Every single UK guest I've had on the Passive Income podcast has talked highly about legal in general, and it seems like the dividend, well, the dividend itself is good, and the company itself is good, but it's kind of weird. Like it pays only twice a year, and it has a bigger dividend in June, and then a smaller one in September or October or something, and it just seems like a weird payout schedule to me.
Yeah, definitely. I honestly look at my American, Canadian, the people that I follow on particularly Twitter, and I see them getting these. They've got like dividend calendars, and like they know that they're going to get a certain amount each month. And I'm a little bit jealous. I won't lie. I don't think we have the same sort of. It's not as regular, and it is a bit all over. Like you mentioned with legal in general, it's sort of yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, the dividend game in the UK.
Yeah, interesting. Like here in Canada, all my REITs, real estate investment trusts, they all pay monthly, and so I know that the majority of them pay on the 15th of every month, and so it's into my brokerage account on the morning of the 16th, and so the 16th every month I wake up very happy because there's just more money sitting there, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is super helpful. I would love that. I would love to know that on this day I can have an extra income that I know is coming every month. But I think the sort of positives in the UK is the ISA allowance that we get each year. So we get 20 grand ISA allowance. You can put it in a stocks and shares ISA. We have something called a lifetime ISA that you can use towards buying your first home. We have junior ISAs, cash ISAs, so you could have a in the savings account, and it's basically a tax-free wrapper. So any interest you earn, any dividends you earn, any capital gains you earn is all tax-free as long as it's within an ISA wrapper, which is definitely the biggest positive to the UK sort of financial market, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And my viewers also know that I love the opportunity to use the word quid any chance I get. So, yeah, 20,000 quid per year is, that's a lot, right? Here in Canada, we have one where I think it's up to 6,500 Canadian dollars, obviously, per year. And that is, you can, if you don't invest 6,500 one year, you can add it to the following year. So the following year could be, 13,000. But and that only goes back to about 2008 or 9 when that was started, that type of account. So, yeah, 20,000 is incredible. And is that capped though? Like, you can't add 20 grand onto the following year if you don't use, or say you use 10 grand this year, could you go to 30 next year?
No, it's just 20 each year. But you keep that each year so you can accumulate money on top of that. But yeah, if you don't use it, you lose it each
Right.
year.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wow. So what else does your portfolio look like? You mentioned, ETFs and index funds. Are you heavy into that side?
Yeah, that's definitely like I said, that's sort of my retirement plan, as well as the workplace pension, which hopefully will be quite nice as well. But that is my plan for early retirement. So each month on payday, it's 25% of my wage goes straight into a world all cap index fund. I think it's the FTSE 500. Um, it goes into that. Doesn't matter what's happening that month. Doesn't matter if I've got big outgoings, anything. That's the first thing that goes out of my paycheck each month.
Pay yourself first.
Exactly that.
Yeah, pay yourself first. And then, so you also mentioned Apple, and other than, obviously, I'm guessing in some of these funds, there's probably other American companies that you own. But do you have individual stocks of other U.S. companies as well?
Yeah. It's not my preference. Index fund would always be my preference, just because I am fairly risk averse, coming from a non-investing family. But
Right.
yeah, I've got Tesla in there, Microsoft. I did have Meta. Yeah, I've still got Meta, PayPal, and I think Netflix is in there. Although that took a bit of a hammering recently.
So the big tech stocks coming into the
Yeah, the big
U.S.
tech ones.
Yeah, which seem like, are great for their growth potential.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully, right? And it's always hopefully. Yeah. Um, okay, what else are we gonna talk about here? Let's bring up
um,
oh, go ahead if
Go
you're gonna
on.
say something.
I was just gonna say, like, my bag is side hustles, is the money blog, is anything that can save money, that can make a bit of extra money. I guess that's my bag.
Right, yeah, actually, that's a good segue because I was just about to bring up your website here, which I will obviously
Okay.
have linked in the description, and there's a lot on here. This is, bemoneysavvy.com. And so much. Award-winning blog writer. You've won some awards, media appearances. There's so much here. Like I said, I was going through this morning and just like Wow, there's a lot of information, but obviously, you've been building this up over the course of nearly 6 years now.
Yeah.
I did love this one too, like money making apps, and this feels very relevant today because this morning I'm scrolling through uh, X, Twitter, X, I don't know, and
Yeah.
I see this one on your the top 5 money making apps, and just happens to be today was the day that all these people are posting their um, X monetization payout on Twitter this morning. So I was like, hmm, should we be adding X to one of these top 5 money making apps?
It's a good point. Yeah, I saw people posting their payouts, and I was thinking, right, I need to look up the eligibility. But yeah, that's definitely going to be an addition on these pages very soon.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, like I actually literally tweeted that this morning saying I need to think about getting that blue check mark so I'll be eligible.
Yeah,
And then the spend less too, Christmas savings. Close the ad. Sorry, try not to pay you too much. um, yeah, Christmas savings is another thing to look at year round, right? Right there, start
yeah,
saving early. You can spend a lot of money on Christmas. I've done it in the past, and sometimes you just get carried away at that time of year, right?
definitely. Yeah, I think it's the time of year when most people end up in debt because they've not planned ahead of what their sort of saving strategy is, and then they get carried away. Black Friday happens, and everything seems like a good deal. And then it comes to the actual day, you've got all your presents, but you've realised you now need to buy all the food, and you've got guests around and all that stuff. So yeah, it's so easy to get carried away with Christmas. So that starting early is always the first point on those kind of posts.
Yeah, and then you see that credit card bill arrive in January, and um, it could be a very bad thing.
Yeah, definitely. January's that month, isn't it, where everyone's waiting until payday.
Yeah, it tends to be right. Um,
Yeah,
emergency fund here is see a really good idea to have an emergency fund. Everyone needs an emergency
yeah,
fund. It will act as a financial buffer in challenging times and help you avoid getting into debt. I think that's a great. Oh, that looks like it's one of your previous tweets.
yeah, definitely. And I think on that, I think so. I have always sort of read the literature of 3 to 6 months is the ideal emergency fund. And I was actually listening to a podcast today, and the guy is a heavy investor, but he will always keep a year's emergency fund. And I thought actually that's quite a coming from a financially insecure environment. I think that's something that I'm quite a big fan of as well,
Right.
having a nice big financial buffer.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. I usually see the 3 to 6 month. But yeah, a full year, I think that's kind of incredible.
Yeah.
And then save these sustainable swap ideas. Like I said, there's so much to go through on your website here. It's like you could be on here all day reading for sure.
Yeah, I think there's something like 1,000 blog posts at this point. Some of them written by fellow money bloggers, some of them written by brands that want to do partnerships. And yeah, I think when I started, I tried to have that sustainability aspect in there as well as the earn money, and then save the bees as
Right.
something a little bit different. But I sort of see them very interchangeable. So usually buying less is both good for the environment and good for your bank balance. Not buying disposable, buying things you can reuse. I can see that as both saving you money and the environment, which is always a positive.
Right. And like I said, I will have this in the linked in the description below, and then at the bottom of your homepage, you can find links to you on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and X.
Need a new logo for that, yeah.
Right. And speaking of X, we'll hop over here. Just give me 2 seconds, and there's your your Twitter/X page, so you can find you on Twitter at BMoneySavvy.
That's me. I've started posting a lot about exercise and fitness recently, but I'll get back to the money. But yeah, it's very UK focused. But there's bits of hints and tips that'll be useful for anyone at the moment. And in
Right.
fact, currently on my website, the where the sort of traffic is coming from, the UK is not in the top spot at the moment, which is ironic because most of those apps and websites and stuff are only going to be really relevant to a UK audience. But yeah, they're currently not on the top spot of visitors at the moment.
Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, the majority of my viewers here on the Passive Income Podcast are from the US, which I guess kind of makes sense, but I'm actually kind of shocked how far, like how few percentages are Canadian to watch, but that's just the way the analytics are.
Yeah,
Cool. So, you're obviously you like those American tech stocks for their potential growth. You like the idea of dividends and passive income. Obviously, you've worked really hard your whole life, starting like as a teenager, like you said, doing any job possible, and then through university, trying to go to university, doing the schooling plus working a million different jobs. Um, so you've definitely got the work ethic, but like you said, there was that light bulb moment where it was like, I need to figure out how to work smarter, not necessarily harder.
yeah, definitely.
And I would say, getting into investing is definitely one of those ways to do that, right?
Yeah.
You also mentioned Tesco briefly, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is a grocery store chain in the UK.
Yeah, it is. It's nationally all over the country. Seem to do pretty well, pay out dividends, which I think is usually why there's not a big emphasis on dividends in the UK because most companies don't pay them out.
Right.
But that was one of the recommendations from one of my followers actually when I asked, right, what's everyone invested in the UK companies that give out dividends? What's everyone going for? And that popped up quite a few times actually, and I thought it's quite a good pick in terms of everyone needs a supermarket. They're literally in every single city across the UK. And I thought, actually, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. People have to eat no matter what. I've always said that, grocery stores and even other food products, they're recession proof because your stomach doesn't care if it's a bull market or a bear market. Your stomach just says, feed me every day, right? 2 and 3 times a day.
Definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. Sorry, where are we here? Oh yeah. So um, I'm kind of curious too about some of the other big brands from the UK that other guests have talked about. Unilever is a very popular
Yeah.
one. Is that something you have in your portfolio?
Yeah. A small position, but yeah, it's in there as well. I'm trying to think what I'll get my investment app open and have a look. But yeah, I try not to look at it very often just because trying to avoid the daily swings and roundabouts,
Right.
um, and focus on the long term. I'm not 30 yet, so I'm thinking like for me, I'm thinking like 20 years, maybe even 30 years investing. So I try not to look
Yeah, no,
too
that's a
often
great
into
mindset
it.
to have. Just sort of set it and forget it as best you can, and have that, like you said, that long term outlook, whether it's another 20, 25, 30 years.
Yeah, definitely. I've got a few sports brands on there as well. I've got Nike and Adidas, and Google, of course, Alphabet. A few banks on there. I've got German Bank or Deutsche Bank, and Bank of America as well. I've got on there.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Have you ever looked at the Canadian banks?
I've not, but I would be open to looking into it.
Okay, everybody knows what's coming. Everybody who's watching knows what's coming is my pitch for the Canadian banks. So we have the big five. Actually, there's a sixth one now called National. So basically, the big six. The first, uh, Bank of Montreal has been paying a dividend since 1829. So nearly 200 years of dividend payments. Bank of Nova Scotia has been paying since 1832 or 33. So also in 10 years' time, coming up on a 200-year anniversary. Obviously, they have not increased their dividend every year for 200 years, but just the longevity of paying that dividend for that long is obviously impressive. And yeah, basically, the Canadian banking industry is a lot more insulated than in the US. Like in the US, they have so many regional banks, and in Canada, there's literally, you know, I couldn't name 10 different banks. There's the big six, like I said, and then a couple others. And then beyond that, there's also credit unions, but there's just really, it's like, it's those big six banks and that all, you know, have every quarter they're announcing like $1.2 billion in profits per quarter. And yeah, like I said, just tend to be strong companies, a lot more insulated because there's not the amount of competition that you see from regional banks in the US. So yeah, definitely look into the Canadian banks. And
Well,
but I am kind of curious now. You mentioned Bank of America and Deutsche Bank, but you didn't mention Lloyd's of London or Barclays, or do you have
I do
those?
have Lloyd's as well, just
Okay.
Lloyd's. But yeah, I think I don't know. I try and stay. It's sort of a moral thing, I guess. So I try and stay away from British banks because so many have like done my parents wrong in different contexts, and it's silly to have try not to invest with emotion. But
Yeah.
sometimes I just can't avoid. I can't help but avoid those sort of brands that have done me wrong or done my parents wrong at some point, and they've had a few different banks that have done that in the past. So I mean, through a sort of process of elimination, Lloyd's are the only bank that I currently have in my portfolio at the moment. UK bank.
Yeah, it's very easy to hate companies as a consumer, but you need to learn to love them as an investor.
Yeah, definitely, and that is such an important point as well. And I think thing is, I'm sort of still quite new to investing. I'm trying to learn rapidly. I'm trying to get lots of information, lots of opinions, and trying to create a bit of a sort of plan for my investments. But yeah, that is something that been really working on over the past few years to take the emotion out.
Right.
At one bit, my fun investment pot was based on brands that I were buying. So it was like, right, today I bought some AirPods. I'll buy a share in Apple as well. Today I bought a game for my Nintendo Switch. So I've now invested in Nintendo, and that was sort of my approach at one bit, which I don't think is necessarily is sort of a good approach, but sort of
Yeah.
like very much focused on me as the consumer. Um, so yeah, that's I'm trying to get away from the sort of emotive investing and trying to focus on the business, the long
Right.
term, that aspect to it.
Yeah, another example of a companies that it's very easy to hate as a consumer and but love as an investor. We have three coming on four now national telecom providers. So obviously, they started way back in the day when they were landlines, and now they have their cellular service, and they're into media and different things as well now, internet and all sorts of things. But yeah, those companies are again very easy to hate as a consumer, but I love them as an investor.
Yeah, definitely. And this is the thing as well. I think I'm finding really interesting looking at other people's investment approaches. I think still as quite a new young investor, like I still feel like I've got loads to learn, and still making mistakes here and there. But yeah, I'm finding it really interesting looking at the sort of differences in different generations and where they put their money, and then the gender divide and where they'll put their money. And then obviously you've got people that don't invest at all and the different demographics there. But that really interests me. Bit of a sociology nerd. So anything where I can like dissect different peoples and different groups,
Different
different communities
demographics.
approach. Yeah. That really interests me, and I'm finding that currently very interesting. and sort of the gender divide as well. Guys seem a far more risk averse. No, the other way around. Women seem far more risk averse than guys.
Yeah.
But I think I'm trying to learn from the guys that I follow to be a bit more, due to my age, be a bit more embracing of risk, and take a few more risks with my investments, because I'm very much like, what's the safe investment? What's going to get me a nice conservative, like regular return each year? And I just know that that's not going to happen. I'm going to have to take a few risks with it.
I think it's okay to have both, right? Have all those what you feel are very safe, a lot less risk, and then yeah, you know, take a few risks on what could be a couple flyers that maybe they skyrocket and you do great. You never know. That's why it's risky.
Yeah. And I guess as well, I mean, it's your podcast, but I'd be interested to know, what would your advice be for me in terms of my investing?
I think you're doing great. So I think kind of just what I just said, right? Like don't be afraid to sort of divide it into two and have your very safe, what you feel is safe investments, and then yeah, take a few risks here and there. And other than that, just keep what you're doing. Like on that, on the safe side, just keep looking at it for that long term investment and the long term growth of whether it's 20, 25, 30 years. And like you said, you're not even 30 yet. So, you know, by the time you're 55, you're going to be in a very good situation as long as you keep doing what you're doing, right? Just keep going, just keep going, keep on
Yeah.
swimming, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think from like, I think I sort of touched on it from the start as well. I'm sort of seeing my own business as an investment in the sort of non-traditional way as well. And I think that's quite, I'm hoping is going to play quite a big part in my sort of future projections as well, is hopeful.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think that's another part of my sort of strategy to keep building on that. And because ultimately the more income I have, the more I can invest, so it's all a knock-on effect as well, isn't it? And I think I'm not sure I want to be a money blogger at 60, so I think at some point selling it and starting from scratch with something new would be really cool as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, right? Like, having a business as whether it's your main income or a side hustle or whatever it is, or a side hustle that becomes your main income. And like you said, you need to increase your income in order to invest more. It's literally that simple, or that difficult, depending on how you look at it. Or spend less, which is very difficult. I know the entire world has been just slapped with inflation these last couple of years. So all of a sudden, spending less wasn't an option because everything was more expensive. You know, I'm sure you've seen it at the grocery store. We've definitely seen it here, where it's all of a sudden, wow, what I used to be able to get twice as much groceries for $200, and now you just can't get what you used to, right? And it's not, so spending less is sometimes an option, but with the current state, the inflation we've had these last couple of years is very difficult. So that's where you have to look at, yeah, increasing your income somehow, whether it's, getting a raise at work, um, and then doing whatever else you can as side hustles, getting the blue check mark on Twitter/X and start making, getting Elon to pay you $100 a month, whatever it takes, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that was sort of my younger person's mindset of like, just save and save and like cut back on this and cut back on that. And like you said, there's only so far that can go, especially in a cost of living crisis and inflation going crazy. So I think if you want your finances to progress, you've got to look at improving your income, be that side hustle, be that progressing at work, any other extra things. But yeah, I
Those
think
money
that's a really
making apps that are
important.
on your website, like
Yeah,
whatever it takes, right?
yeah, definitely.
Interesting. This has been an incredible conversation. I've totally loved having you here on episode 100 celebration. Comment below for a chance to win a passive income Posse coffee mug. We've given out a couple already, but since it's episode number 100, we're going to celebrate by giving away another one. Emma, before we sign off, do you have any other things you'd like to say in closing?
Nothing else other than just good luck to the competition, on the competition, everyone. I love a competition myself. I am a big comper. Won a few holidays actually. So good
Nice.
luck in the competition. And thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Thank you. I am going to ask you one last thing. Any advice you would give to anyone, whether it's someone just starting out, or what would you say to someone, or what would you say to your brother right now?
I mean, I have already said it to him, but it would be, in my view, one of the smartest things you can do for your money is set up a regular investment. Um, do your research before you do it, better than me. So have a real look at the market and figure out what you want and how long you're going to invest for. Ideally, you want to be looking at it long term. Set up a regular investment. Doesn't matter how much it is, whatever you can afford to not think about each month.
Right.
Start investing. Um, Today is the best day to do it. Tomorrow will be the second best day if you've not already started. So get doing that. Absolutely trim the fat, save money wherever possible, cashback cards, discounts, all that stuff. But like we've mentioned in the podcast, invest in your income is always going to be the best way to project your finances. It gives you more investing money as well. And I guess my other thing is try things out as well. I think when I started money blogging, when I became a money blogger, I had no idea you could make money from it. I
Right.
just started doing it as funnily enough to as a way to document my side hustles and that kind of thing, and then that ended up becoming the best side hustle I had. So just try things and see what you enjoy doing and try and make money from it. I think that would be my closing point.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. Your future self will thank you. And with that said, thank you so much for coming on and spending time with me on this episode of the Passive Income Podcast. This has been an incredible conversation. I totally love having guests from the UK. It definitely is something a little bit different for us. Obviously very similar as well. We all speak the same language, but um, the majority of guests here are obviously Canadians and Americans, but I've now had several from the UK, and it's always an enjoyable chat. So thank you so much for being on this episode of the Passive Income Podcast and celebrating episode number 100 with me.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. With that said, if you're still here watching well over 40 minutes later, please be sure to subscribe